Welcome to this lecture where I will be talking quite extensively about inquiry-based learning and how it develops critical thinking skills. Inquiry-based learning is often used as an umbrella term to describe many educational strategies. These include project-based learning, problem-based learning, case study-based learning, fieldwork, and so on. I don't really intend to go through all of these, so I will stick to inquiry-based learning as an overarching category that can encompass all these forms of teaching. As you will see, inquiry-based learning is a concrete way to create a learning progression that leads students to become researchers in their own right. However, I would like to highlight a common misconception that inquiry-based learning is only about teaching the research process so students can become researchers themselves. This is undoubtedly an important part of inquiry-based learning, but it is equally important that during the research process, students also learn what it means to be a researcher and how to strive for knowledge as researchers. It is thus about learning to think like a researcher, to think like a researcher, to become an inquirer, so that your future inquiries can be made with the criteria of knowledge acquisition that we value in higher education. To that end, as I will be getting to at the end of this lecture, is that inquiry-based learning is a learning practice that helps to develop the students' critical thinking skills. Moreover, when looking at the literature on critical thinking, and especially the practices that make it possible to educate for critical thinking, in my opinion, they tend to not give enough consideration to how especially STEM subjects can educate for critical thinking. But by highlighting inquiry-based learning, we can see a concrete example of how critical thinking can be taught within STEMs as in all of the subjects at a higher education level as well. The basic idea is that critical thinking is something that develops to the extent that students are encouraged to be inquirers. Inquiry-based learning is a teaching strategy used in most subjects in higher education. However, it is used extensively in STEM subjects. Therefore, by teaching with inquiry-based learning, critical thinking can be developed in students regardless of the subject. This lecture consists of the following video lectures. In the first video, I addressed the question of whether all students should become researchers at a basic level. This part of the lecture has come about as a result of a course on research-based teaching and learning in higher education that I had previously taught. One purpose of research-based teaching and learning is to train students to become competent researchers themselves. As this is not an explicit purpose in all higher education programs, one can question this purpose of research-based learning. However, I will argue that the question can be reinterpreted as being about educating students to become independent inquirers, which I believe all higher education programs should see as a worthy purpose. The next 3 videos describe inquiry-based learning. In the first of them, I briefly review what inquiry-based learning is, and in the following video, I present 4 forms of inquiry, showing that inquiry-based learning what it can look like in practice. And third, I will show how the process towards greater capacity of inquiry goes through 5 phases. Finally, I will highlight how inquiry-based learning helps to develop the students' critical thinking skills. But I will also argue that inquiry-based learning cannot be the only strategy that we use when educating for critical thinking. So I hope you'll find this lecture rewarding.